very used to behaving certain way, it's very hard for them to respond to anything that is changes. Yeah, that's why we wanted to contribute in the literatures in the context of developing countries. So for this, we're going to use a very simple technology, which is prepaid metering. So we don't have to use complicated in-home display to show information. Well, in developing countries, because that will require some additional investment, right? But a simple prepaid meterings versus the conventional one, we can already see the link. So in prepayment, listrik pintar or prepaid, it's clear because you have to feel the balance before you consume, yeah. Versus the postpaid, where you pay at the end of the month, it's very clear the role of information. You immediately know how much you consume because you have to buy it first. While at the end of the month, you don't know. So the information that is transferred to you, consciousness, is clear, will be higher for the prepaid. This is what we are going to explain why those who are using postpaid and prepaid behave different, because the key differences is one has to feel it first, so it creates more awareness, one does not. And I'm sure you're very familiar with this metering. I think almost the penetration is very high for residential. So for small consumers, less than 2,200, the blue lines, yeah. So this one is postpaid, pay at the end of the month. This one is prepaid, you pay before you consume. And you can see in 2013 is increased very rapidly. Why? Because PLN has planned expansion for prepaid. Therefore, we see a very high penetration. And you can see number of consumers in 2020 is reached about 40 million. Yeah. So makes it more relevant. I would say this is perhaps the largest prepaid consumers in anywhere in the world. Yeah. And some trends in consumption. Looking at household is even more important. Why? Because household takes a huge chunk of electricity consumption. So the highest consumptions is household. Below, there's industry and business, and there's others. So really, because of large numbers of populations, we need, it's important to focus on household. So what we are going to focus here, we are going to focus on consumers. What happened to consumers? So prepaid can benefit producer. Producer is what? PLN. They can benefit, but it's very clear that it has positive benefit for the producers or PLN. Yeah, it's very clear that it has a positive benefit for producer, but consumers, it's a bit unclear. It's a bit unclear because it's true that you are more aware of your consumption, but it's not necessarily means that you're happier with that prepaid, right? Happier means you're happy using that, and these are the key things that economies are thinking about. It's not just about you are aware, but at the end of the day, we want to maximize utility, which is maximize satisfactions, maximize your happiness of using that. So it's ambiguous why you maybe some positive aspect, yeah, you are more aware, so you're more responsive, but there's also negative one. In some cases where you have to pay it first, you don't really like it, right? Because we want to defer payment as long as possible. So based on discussions with those who are using prepaid metering, there are potential mental pain of paying upfront. I mean, you pay it now or later is the same amount, but it's just because you paid now, you feel not really good, yeah? So mental pain of paying upfront, liquidity constraint, maybe some small households don't have really the money at that time to pay it first, yeah, to pay it forward, maybe liquidity constraint, worrying about running out of balance, transaction costs, necessary to buy the token. So these are additional aspects that may lead to negative welfare. So how to compute welfare in net is to think about this positive and negative. Is it the sum is negative or positive? Then if it is positive, then it means prepaid is welfare improving. If the sum is negative, then prepaid is welfare, not welfare improving. So meaning for consumers. So studies have shown, okay, some studies, for instance, in South Africa, Bangladesh, Ethiopia, they're also expanding the prepaid meters. What they see is just before and after prepaid meters, they consume less. Every studies show that they consume less. What we wanted to do here is to know why they consume less. Why? Yeah. So in lab experiments, really comparing prepaid and postpaid in lab experiments in Germans, they see that if you pay it at the end, you tend to overconsume. Then if you're paying it at front. So these are some existing studies, and what we want to conclude is why is those who are using prepaid consume less. Everybody shows prepaid consume less. Why? So if we can go. So this paper will look at whether they are more price responsive. Is prices increase, they are more responsive or not? Yeah, that's what we are going to show you. And then number two, we are going also to do a survey on willingness to pay. So a proxy for welfare of consumers. We also did this. I will primarily talk about one, and if we have time, we will talk about two, but I will summarize the key results first before I got into details. About 166 service units. So we're gonna look at each unit as a service unit, and within the service unit, there's a different voltage ampere, the contracted capacity. Yeah, capacity is maximum amount of can use at any moment in time. What going to is with capacity, the location is the then we are going to compare prepaid and postpaid. To illustrate what is voltage ampere, everybody know what is voltage ampere? So the consumption at any moment in time cannot exceed your voltage ampere. Yeah. So for instance, 1,300. If you're for 900 VA, you cannot afford AC because it's just not sufficient for you to use it. So we can sort of understand a little bit of the income level of each. We need the price variations to see how do they respond to prices, right? Price variations come from changes in the subsidy. So in 900 VA, they changed the subsidy. So in around 2016, they removed the subsidy. So a price increase. In 1,300, it's also, they remove it in 2014-ish, yeah? So prices increase. Now we're going to see the behavior of postpaid and prepaid in the fact that the price change. Yeah. So here is the tariffs. The blue is the residential. R1 also residential. M is mampu. It's new categories by 10P2K that they created in 2016. B1 is small business. So the price, as you can see, the green one is stable. So the subsidy for the B1 always there. Yeah, well, a little bit increase. But what is changed is R1. So the residential, they remove the subsidies for different VA, different times. So in 2014, prices increase. In 900, around 2016, prices increase because the removal of subsidy. But only for R1M, which is the new category, which is R1 mampu. Yeah. So because our data is monthly, average monthly per year, so we can, well, the previous one is monthly prices. This one is, we need to take average. We need to take average, yearly average. So here is the line. Is the tariff. Tariff is increased for R1 1,300, and this is an illustration for 1,300. This one is B1 1,300. Prices are flat, so price not didn't change, just like previous graph. And there's a blue and green ones. So blue is the share of prepaid customers. So yeah, this is coefficient of elasticity parameters for postpaid. This one is elasticity of parameters for prepaid. Negative means prices increase, consumption goes down. So these are standard deviations. You can see if it's big, it means yeah, the standard deviation is surrounding that. So essentially, coefficients of elasticity of postpaid is small, about 0.1, while the elasticity of prepaid is a lot higher. So it means that prices increase, they react more. So if prices increase 10%, they reduce their consumptions by about 30%. So theoretically, if we only consider welfare based on price changes and how consumers change their behavior, actually more elastic of the demand, it's welfare improving. The higher the elasticity parameters, is welfare improving. There's a theoretical evidence on that. But maybe welfare does not always all depends on prices. Maybe there are non-monetary measures. That's why we conduct results number 2, because maybe there are features that cannot be captured by just simply prices. So we do survey. We do survey of postpaid and prepaid. And how do we measure welfare? Yeah, how do we measure welfare? We use multiple price listing to measure willingness to stay using prepaid meter and forgo opportunities to receive cash. So, individuals, we receive 2 questions, 2 options. Do you want to stay using prepaid? This is amount of money I will offer. And the other options is, this one is 40K. Yeah? The other option is, if you don't want, I will inform PLN to switch you to a different meter. If you're using postpaid, if you're using prepaid, then I will inform PLN to ask them to switch to postpaid. So your respondents are offered 2 options, right? Based on what they pick, they will again get another 2 options, in which we play around with the amount. Now it's 25. The other option is 40K. And all of these until there's 0. If you continue to use prepaid, I will offer you 0. If you want to switch to postpaid, I will offer you 40K. And the difference between this is willingness to pay. No, willingness to forego the opportunity to get some amount of money. So it means if they choose this, it means you value your prepaid a lot, at least 40K, because you forego your opportunity to get 40K to choose to stay using prepaid. So this is a standard multiply price listing method that you can search in the existing study. So we use that methods and we can know precisely how much their willingness to pay, to accept, or to still using prepaid. So we do find some characteristics in the survey. For instance, 90% of prepaid users believe that prepaid tells more information, so consistent with what we think. And they also consume less, 17%, so it's again consistent. Some discount rate, I will not talk further details there. Some features there stand out. The consumers happy with not having no unexpected bills. So a lot of these are sometimes it's hard to quantify. Yeah? That's why we use that multiple price listing method. And this leads to a positive value for willingness to pay. So it means that they are happy to use prepaid, at least for the set of respondents we ask. And one of the discussions is this. So maybe prepaid, not many people like to use prepaid because they don't have money in front to buy the tokens. But I mean, the shares of electricity bills tend to be small, but less than 5%. And you can also buy smaller tokens. For instance, if you spend 100K, then you can buy 4 times 25K, something like that. So we don't think that liquidity constraint is making them have negative welfare. Because if this is a problem, you don't have money in front, you can consume less. But the reason is because you don't have money to buy it in front. And this is our negative welfare. But we don't see that because logically it shouldn't be. You can buy small tokens and it's not the amount is not that big. So we don't think that they suffer this liquidity constraint. So then we can go into a bit of details. So shares of prepaid users has been increasing. So before the regions about 0 to 0.4 40% of penetrations of prepaid. In 2020, some regions are already reached 100%. So how do we measure this? So then we need to have a good comparisons. Yeah, R1. Let's make a good comparisons. R1M 900 VA, R1 900 VA. R1M is experience price increase. R1 900 does not. They stay using in subsidy tariff, but they are 900 VA. So yeah, they're more or less similar household, right? Similar appliances, set of appliances. R1 1300, B1 1300, they have similar VA, but R1, which is residential, the prices increase. B1 always receives subsidy. Yeah, so we have these comparisons. Well, then we can have a measure of changes in log usage, and let's see clearly in the graph. 900 VA. R1M exposed, so it means they are exposed to price changes. And the dash one is others, R1 900, B1 900, they don't experience tariff changes. And we can separate postpaid and prepaid. Yeah? And remember, R1M 900 VA for the postpaid, they also experience tariff changes. and similar to the prepaid. So what we see here, let's say it's postpaid, this is low usage. So consumptions over the year tend to increase. Economic is growing, consumers get better, so they always get more appliances. So we always see average consumptions increase. So there's nothing really, it's common pattern. So everybody's increase. So everybody behaving very similarly, different consumers group. And what's interesting here is the prepaid one. As you can see, the blue one is R1 900. They experience price changes in this line. They also grow, but they don't grow as much as the R1M 900 in the postpaid. They experience the same price changes, but they essentially just grow less. So this is a measure already indicate that they consume and they are responsive to price changes. Why? Because they only the change in behavior only happened after the tariff changes, which is the dashed line. The same thing as 1,300. R1 and the B1 is the control. B1 does not experience tariff changes, and R1 experiences tariff changes. And this postpaid. So the blue one experiences tariff changes, but they are using postpaid. Here, the blue one experiences tariff changes, but they're using prepaid. And what we see is the same as earlier conclusions, that they are growing, but they are just growing a lot less. So, and it's only happened after the tariff changes, which is this dashed line, so voting. So it means they're reacting to tariff changes. So based on this graph, we already can see that they are responding to tariff more than counterpart, the postpaid, even though the tariff changes are the same for both of them. So details on estimating equations. So we can use standard DID, which is the treatment and post, and then the coefficients. That is DID coefficients. If we want to compute elasticity, we need to use usage here, and then there's log price on the right. But the results are quantitatively similar. So our parameters for elasticity is this delta. So here, the delta coefficient, all is the sum of postpaid and prepaid. So postpaid, let's focus on the column 5. 3 and 4 is similar. 3 is using the ID. This one is using low prices. Changes in tariff prices is about 0.3, so if you multiply by that, divide by that, it's the same as this, about that. But here is the overtimes or elasticity parameters. Here is the postpaid, here is the prepaid. So in 2014, it's about 0.1 or ish, while the prepaid is increasing, it's about 0.15, 0.25, so they are getting higher and higher. It could be also because of learning. The more maybe in this first year, they don't really realize that how much is the tariffs increase. Then later on, there are some learning, and then they know. So after about 6 years, the elasticity is about 0.5, while postpaid stays the same, is about 0.0 something, 0.1. Right? So it's very clear that in details even, over time, prepaid are more price responsive. And it's really because of the price changes, because we don't see anything if there's no price changes. Here is R1 450, compared to the business one, 450. They're always subsidized. There's no tariff changes anywhere. And postpaid and prepaid is just behaving very similarly. Prepaid, they tend to increase a bit, is because the consumers also, there are more smaller consumers using prepaid. But essentially, B1 and R1, there's nothing changes because there's no price changes in any case. So yeah, and these are just the measures that the same as what we see in the table earlier, but in forms of graph. So R1N, which is the blue one, they only exist after 2016, while B1, R1, they already exist there. So essentially, impact of prepayment. Impact of prepayment, it means we compare those who are using postpaid and those who are using prepaid. And the impact of prepayment, after the prepayment, they consume less. Yeah? After here, they are not changing. Well, they are not significantly borderlines. So essentially, the only thing that has changed is those who are experienced tariff changes. And this is the magnitude of the elasticity parameters, because there's log usage. It's the same as the tables that I show you. And this is the same with 900 VA. This one is 1,300. Again, the elasticity parameters minus 0.3 with some standard deviations. Only R1 and not B1, the same. And there's nothing changed, there's no difference between B1 and R1 again, in terms of elasticity. And we can also look at the demand across regions. I mean, it varies. In the East, they are a little bit more price responsive. Java, not much. I mean, it could be also, elasticity correlated with income. So it could be the reason why we see high, it means they are more responsive. 10% of increase, they reduce 8.8. Yeah. But it's still consistent with what we find, that prepaid is more price elastic. So these are geographic penetrations of the prepaid. And what we see a lot in the East is already 100% in this earlier graph. So these are, if we split regions based on how much is the prepaid penetration rate, it means the regions that very high penetration of prepaid, these are the regions where low penetrations of prepaid in 2013, it's still consistent. The prepaid is more elastic than postpaid. And some drivers for why we see it's prepaid more price elastic, yeah. And these are the potential drivers that explains those. And summary that I already discussed earlier. And these are the results of our survey, the key results of our survey. So we ask them, right? And then we can compute how many, the frequency of those who are choosing this and choosing that. And then we can plot it in the histogram graph. So here it means larger than $2 or $3, because we only offer 40K, and 40K is equivalent to about $3. And they always seems to be 80% of them seems to always choose the options where even they forgo the opportunity to get $3 in order for them to stay using prepaid. They all 80% of them. So they forgo the opportunity to get $3. It cannot be that prepaid is not, they don't value it at least for $3, right? If they really hate it, they will take whatever money that is being offered for them to convert to postpaid. They didn't. They still want that. So it's some evidence that at net, considering all the more non-monetary benefits, they don't like the sound of the beep beep sound. They have to pay it forward. There are no unexpected bill. These are all really non-quantitative kind of aspects, and we cannot really measure it unless we do this, right? And then at net, it seems to be they're happy about that. Well, to summarize, we believe that prepayment system, which is the prepaid meters, they have to pay forward. I mean, these are the system. Yeah, it's implemented firstly for the electricity, but we already see it grows in other sectors like water, stoves in other countries. Yeah, in Indonesia it's mostly just electricity, but in countries like sub-Saharan African countries, they already use prepaid water. And some is prepaid stove. So it means you only pay based on what you consume. So prepayment system, what we try to understand is the prepayment system. It's not about the meter around, it's just a system that we pay first before we consume. How does it change the behavior, right? So what we understand from here is that they are more aware of how much they consume, so they are more making the best decisions for them. Given this price, I will consume this. So it's better for them, more likely better for them, and it will grow in the future. So what we learned here about the prepayment system is not just electricity. It will be helpful for us thinking about a prepayment system in other sectors. Maybe we will grow into a prepayment system for water. It could be. And conclusions, the prepayment in electricity will lead to more price elastic. I mean, prepayment system reflected in the metering. And this metering is not, relative to in-home display, the device where it shows how much prices you consume, how much prices that at that time. It's tend to be more expensive compared to the metering. So even a simple technology as the metering system, every house has to have metering, whatever shape they have to have metering because you have to measure the consumptions. But it can tweak just a little bit on the timing on when they pay. Actually can change, can initiate some changes in the behavior, right? So this is what we see. Similar effect to the in-home display, despite of the fact that you don't have to buy expensive devices to make you more aware of how much you consume. And based on our survey, it seems that there are some positive consumer surplus. One caveat is that we did an online survey on that because there's options. It's very easy to use an online survey. People can choose, and then generate the results. Maybe in online survey, consumers are relatively more educated, richer, and all that. But in any case, we still see that people don't really hate postpaid. So maybe there's a positive welfare on this system, the prepayment. That's it. And the rest is just details on if any of you are interested digging into more details. But really, the key things that I need to say, I already said this.
Thank you, Imelda. Thank you very much, Imelda. There are a lot of technical things and great results and analysis from Imelda's research in team with researcher from Wageningen, Wageningen and from Australian National University. Is there any questions from the audience you want to ask, or I would like to ask question first to Imelda because it was very interesting. I think the key point from your presentation that the prepaid system, prepayment system actually can change behavior. In your case, although you limit that for the smaller service unit, something like that, right? Like the 900.
So we are doing it at the service unit level, and then we are looking into 900 and 1,000. Why? Because price variation is happening in that.
Yes. Okay. So although now Imelda research is focusing on the 900 VA and 1,300 VA, maybe for the future research there is possibility to look at further how the prepayment system can change behavior for other service unit level as well. So my question for you is first, I'm wondering if you have information about the service unit level and pricings as happening in Indonesia, like the 900, 450, 900 PA, and then 1,300 and 2,200 in other countries with similar characteristic and maybe demand like Indonesia, and how maybe from other studies or something like that, and how this conclusion from your research on the prepayment system also relate to the behavior in the customers of other countries. That's one thing. And then the second thing, my understanding, although this is 900 and 1,300, it is for the consumer is from household as well as business. Is it right or no?
We're comparing household and small business.
Okay, household and small business. So that is already seen in two types of customer class. I'm wondering your prediction for the higher, maybe medium level business that use a higher electricity. So how you think that what happened in this class can also happen in that medium or bigger level industry or business, something like that. Thank you.
Good questions, thank you. So compared to other countries, there's not many existing studies that measures elasticity of demand for electricity in developing countries. It's typically harder because there are not much changes in prices. It's very politically sensitive, so price changes in electricity is not a lot. And what they usually use is, average based on oil prices, so there's not much variations. If there's not much variations, it's very hard to identify the parameters. So in terms of elasticity parameters in developing countries, there's not many, but there are some. Yeah, there are some. The good one, there are some. For developed countries, there's some. There are more. The one that I recall, the one that is good, the identifications is very clear, is using US data, where there's municipality aggregations, so they compare municipality aggregations. So the price variations really come from supply side. It's not for demand side. You cannot use a demand side because it's endogenous and all that. So the parameters that they see, long-term elasticity is about also 0.3. Yeah, long-term. There's also a study in the US in different states. They find 0.1. So different range of elasticity parameters. And whether our results is to some extent, our results is within that, it's within that range. But we need to understand that elasticity requires consumers to be aware of that. So if they don't aware of the prices, or there's no price variations, we could end up with elasticity of 0.001 or something. And then we believe it's to be elasticity. No, it's not. It's just because consumers is just not aware of that prices. So there's few components that we need to make sure is present in the household or whoever the data, whoever the users are, that they are aware of it. There's price variations, then we can estimate price elasticity. And what we find here is, to some extent, within the range. And what's important as well is elasticity is very correlated with income. So the richer you are, you can already ask yourself, if you have unlimited budget, will you react to changes in prices? You probably don't care. And if you're a low income, you tend to be very responsive. Yeah, even price just a little bit, 10% increase, you're very sensitive to it. I need to reduce it. So developed countries that with high income, so they might have less elasticity, they might be less elastic. developing countries they may be more elastic, and particularly for 900, they may be more elastic. Yeah, compared to, for instance, if we expand this study to 2,200, and there are even larger household size, 6,000 even each. My predictions is that they are less elastic. It's just because elasticity correlates with the income. The more, the richer you are, you perhaps care less about prices. Yeah. And the second question.
Comparison with your business.
With the business.
Yeah, your prediction.
Oh, yeah. So previously we were talking about really residential. So why we talk about residential? Because in context of Indonesia, it's very, very important role. Yeah. I'm looking for the here is it. So household is very important, but we cannot. There are others. It's not that they are not significant. So there's industry and there's this business, the small business, yeah, the one that we use. The focus of business and commercial customers or industry, they are profit maximizer. So their objective function, they will minimize costs, right? And the cost is a function of price. So my predictions, if we expand it to commercial, they are more price responsive, even more than household. Why? Because it's really part of their maximization functions. Household, they may care about prices, but there are other things that they care. For instance, I don't want to deal with the hassle of reducing changing my habit. I don't want to do it. But commercial, if the potential savings of changing your behavior, maybe some scheduling, it's part of your cost of goods sold or some cost of service. So my guess is they are more reactive, they are more elastic to price changes. They are more aware because they will look for how much is my cost components, how much is the price, and how do I do to reduce this cost. So I would guess they are more elastic. I mean, there are many things I could talk about this, but I would, if anyone is curious about certain aspects, feel free.
Thank you,
Yes.
That's a very great response.
Yeah. So.
Your name and maybe where you're from.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Ian. So I'm from JPAL, and because I was a bit late, I was wondering whether was your data collected from survey or from PLN data?
So the results is in two parts. One is secondary data from PLN. Second one is a survey.
Okay. And then from that data, did you also analyze was there any change in household consumption pattern in terms of household items, probably like their foods or other consumption?
So you're talking about the survey, it means the second
Yeah.
one, because the PLN data we only know the total bills, right, of
Yeah.
electricity. So for the household, I mean, what is our prior? So if they consume less, and maybe what is relevant is maybe they consume more in others, as what you said in the food. I mean, if you're asking me whether I know this, no, I don't. I didn't ask this because they can shift their goods, but it's not really part of the key question. So it means the key questions is prepaid welfare improving or not, right? And why? And if they shift to food spending, for instance, it's household maximization problem. It's not part of the key questions that help us to know whether prepaid is welfare improving or not. We only need to know how much they change in the bill. in which in the survey we ask. There's some trade-off if you do survey, right? You cannot ask too many questions, otherwise they will answer not very a good one. So we didn't ask that. But we believe that asking how much is the bill is sufficient to help us to answer this question.
Thank you.
Is there any questions from the audience? Okay.
Hi, Imelda. Thank you for the presentation. So if I didn't hear incorrectly, the prepaid system is more profitable for PLN?
It's likely that it's more profitable. There's no research really, quantifying, or perhaps they already quantified, but it's clear that it's beneficial to them. Otherwise, they wouldn't expand it. If they suffer for losses, if they expand to prepaid, they wouldn't expand it. Yeah.
So that is confusing for me. If the consumers consume less, wouldn't that mean that their revenues would be lower, or is it like the unit
Yes.
revenue, unit profit is higher?
Good point. That's a very good point, and it's always being asked. Well, okay, they consume it. But when I presented, the first response is, it means that we should have used this postpaid because we want to boost the sales, right? Well, you only talk about sales. There are a lot of different components. For instance, reducing the risk of bad debts. So it means there are some non-payment, yeah? So those who are billing at the end of the month, some may decide not to pay, and they can still consume up to 1 or 3 months or so. So these are problems for Thailand. If you have to pay it first, it's very clear. The control is in you, the consumers. Yeah? Then there's no non-payment whatsoever. So that one is one component. Other components is electricity tab in terms of operational aspects. It could be that in the postpaid metering system, it's easier to tamper than the prepaid. It could be, yeah. Although if you wanna tamper whatever meter, they may already do something on that. But based on research, there are some key benefits, operational sides, that leads to gains in prepayment. For instance, the billing system. You no longer have to print a bill and managing revenue because the business process here is shorter for the PLN side. So these are just some few aspects that is outside of sales that is beneficial for them. And I mean, ideally one has to quantify all of this and sum it, but I think in sum it's more likely to be positive in terms for the other aspect other than sales. And maybe interesting to point out is that there's a study conducted in Cape Town also comparing prepaid and postpaid, but they can look at revenue in stream for after the use of prepaid, and they see that the revenue recovery is improving. It means there are more revenue in stream rather than postpaid, because postpaid, the common problem is non-payment, yeah, and you can minimize it with prepaid. This is the study that they have conducted. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any other question? I want to follow up. We still have time a little bit, so I want to follow up your response on the elasticity and correlation with the income, particularly because the one who respond most to the price changes are from the low income. Meanwhile, high income tend to respond to that. They don't care or put less priorities on changing the consumption. So how do you think measures can be done to these high income households to promote the reducing consumption if they don't really respond to price changes compared to the household level? That is one thing. The second question is about the affordability of the electricity for lower level, because when we talk about consume less, are we talking about they are more just like they are still fulfilling their basic needs, or they actually cannot afford the electricity? That should be the concern, especially for us in Semeru working on poverty and inequality. We don't want that this like efficiency-oriented reduction of electricity demand actually make more people actually living in less than the basic standards in terms of electricity consumption. Thank you.
So what's good question? The first one is about memory problem. How do we encourage higher income to consumers? So what is important I want to highlight is what is it energy efficiency means. It means you enjoy the same service but with less energy spent. You enjoy the same service. Lightning, you consume the same amount of light but with less consumption. So in higher income, it's important to have prices that are higher enough for them to react, and they need to know. And I mean, prices for commercial sectors here, I think is equivalent to marginal costs. They are not subsidized, and perhaps they are still low. I mean, business may not like to hear prices are higher, but the only way for them to really think about energy efficiency measures, it means I want to enjoy the service, but I want to, in total, the energy consumption has to be less. The only way for them to think about this is if the price is high. And do we see that in the future prices will go up? I think the price will go up. Why? Because it's been such a long time we've been relying on the coal power plant. And the coal power plant, they don't include the cost of externalities, and also the prices tend to be lower compared to how much you should charge if we compute the cost of carbon included. And with the Paris goal and all the climate change goals, I think it's prices tend to increase. So it might be at some point that it hits the limit on not being categorized as low prices. I mean, Indonesia is on average the prices are low. At some point, the prices is high. I mean, if we are compared to other developing countries, I think the prices are still very low. If we reach enough high of prices, I think consumers will respond a lot more. They will compute: is it better for us to use more energy efficient fridge or cooling or AC or not? Given these prices, so I think it will slowly change measures in terms of how they can save energy only if the price is higher than. I mean, I'm not talking about you should increase the price; it's very politically sensitive. But what I'm just saying is that in order for these richer households to change their behavior, the incentive has to be material enough. It means the prices has to be high enough that it hurts them to consume as much as they already used to consume. And the second one, it's very true that smaller consumers is very vulnerable. So if we ask them to pay it forward, it may hurt them. It's true that they consume less, but yes, they consume less. It's not necessarily welfare improving. Maybe they don't have money to buy it. That's key, and this is why, the reason why we conduct the second part of the study, which is the survey. So we want to know whether they're happy or not, these consumers. So the survey also includes smaller consumers. So we also ask their VA, 900, 1,300. I mean, at the end, they still 80% of them say they're okay with it. And I think it makes sense because when we look at the share of expenditure for electricity, I mean, we have subsenas. We also in the survey ask them how much they consume. It's really not much. It's less than 5%. So if you spend your monthly expenditures about 1 million, so 5% about 50K. You can't even get a Starbucks on that. Well, maybe your spending on cigarettes is higher. But anyway, so it's not that significant. I mean, compared to other African countries, for instance, where they use coal for stoves, spending on coal for the stove, it's really high, like 20% of their monthly income. And here in our case, it's 5%. So consumers should be smart enough to be able to, prioritize electricity consumption and spend later for because it's only 5%. And you can also buy it in a smaller token. So it's not if you don't have money, you don't have 100K at this point, you can put in 25K and it's available. So we don't think, it's still possible, but we don't think it's what we see in the survey, it's liquidity constraint, it means you cannot pay for it. It shouldn't be a major, like a big problems for this. And we confirmed it with the survey. It seems that they are okay with that, the prepaid, because they have positive results. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. We still have 6 minutes. If there is another question, yes, please.
Thank you, Imelda, for your nice presentation. My question is quite straightforward. Actually, I'm very concerned with your heterogeneity analysis. If you can go back to your slide, it seems the result for eastern part of Indonesia, the elasticity is quite big, 0.8, almost 0.8. It's like almost unitary elastic. Can you please explain to me, provide some explanation what my graph is finding? And also, I'm not sure whether you really conduct your analysis by province or major island actually. So what I compare is within the service unit, right? I compare within the service unit. So across Indonesia, there's 100-ish, almost 200 service units. And there's some, maybe like 10% of service units in Sumatra, Borneo, and all that, And then here is we just split the sample. So therefore, in Sumatra, you have more observation. It means the service unit in Sumatra is more than Java.
So it's by island, not by. Okay.
This is by island. So just to know how the heterogeneity, how is the different consumers' behavior across island, right? So here it's true. And the Papua, in total, their service is small. Borneo, it means the service units of PLN here, there's not many. They're less compared to Sumatra and Java. Why they are more elastic?
Double compared.
True. I argue that the bigger the parameters here, it means they are more elastic, it means they are more aware, it means they are more responsive to tariff changes, and it's usually correlated with income. So it means NTT and Papua, I mean, if you compare to Java, maybe they're relatively lower income. Yeah. So even the small increase in tariff, it I don't want to say it hurts them more, but they are more aware of it because it's important cost for them, because I mean lower income is more elastic. This is what we common wisdom. More poorer household is more elastic. They tend to be poorer, and that's why they are more elastic. Java tend to be higher income, and on average, I mean therefore we ended up with a very with the 0.3, but pay attention to the standard deviations. It's 0.2, so I mean you can talk about 0.5 as well, right? Well, here is very precise. Here is very precise. It could also because of observations or power issues. So I think one needs to look at standard deviation. It's about 0.8, but standard deviation 0.3, so it's a 0.5, ish. So let's say.
It's really burning question for me after that. What based on region that does it that the explanation about the response in Nusa Tenggara and Papua Islands, does it mean there are more prepaid users there? Is that my first question? Is it related to that as well? Because you mentioned the low income respond more, and that means the elasticity is higher. So does it mean because there are more low income people there, then more prepaid users as well in this Nusa Tenggara and Papua? And the second one is, I'm wondering actually, apologize for my if I don't understand the detail, the technical detail, but is the price across islands actually same, and whether the price changes also the same across islands, or there are differences?
No, prices are the same,
Exactly.
except like Batam, which they have their own prices. But in general, it's the same.
Even Java and Papua, for example?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We have, the tariff is regulated by, as the SDM. That ministry, they publish their tariff, and there's no differentiations between regions, so it's nationwide. And whether it's because the prepaid share of the prepaid is high or not, that's why I put this ratio of prepaid. It means the share of the prepaid user compared to the total numbers of consumers in 2030, because it's important at the beginning. So I mean, on average, the share is to some extent is similar. And also average kilowatt hour per household. Okay, so Borneo consume a bit more. To some extent, 10 kilowatt hour is very small, right? So I mean, they're within the same. And let's see the ratio in 2019. They are a bit higher a little bit. But I mean, Java, their some service units are also very high. So it's not that, it's really mainly primarily driven by larger share of prepaid, because some Java service unit in Java, some service unit in Borneo, the penetration is also high. So, so I don't think that is primarily driven by the shares of the prepaid that is higher in here. Why? Because the numbers we are putting here, the coefficients that is linked to here, is just comparing prepaid and postpaid and the interactions with prices. That's it. So it's I don't put the shares of prepaid, no. It's really coefficients that capture changes in consumptions in relates to changes in prices. So, yeah. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Imelda. This is really interesting question. And we come to the end of the seminar because it's already 11:30 and this is a short day for Friday prayer. Thank you again, Imelda, for coming to our small office and presenting your research and sharing with us here. Thank you for all participants who passed the rain today and come to Semeru as well. So, as a last comment from me, Imelda, this research is really important, especially as now Indonesia is focusing on just energy transition. And a lot of this aspect that Imelda mentioned actually leading to further questions about the accessibility, the affordability, the reliability of energy, especially electricity consumed by diverse groups of Indonesian people. We need to further think about how the pricing, for example, the changes in prices, etc., is actually improving our efforts towards greener energy, but at the same time without leaving more marginal groups or lower income people behind because energy is no longer affordable. I think that's work of other research following your current paper. So, last thing, on behalf of Semeru, I am Hendy Kurniasi. Thank you very much to you and your team from Wageningen and from Australian University to share with us. Thank you for FKP Secretariat and Indonesia Project. And it's really an honor for us to host our presenter today. And good luck with your study as well and your paper. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.